Hello, my name is Alyssa Hudson, and I am going to be your tour guide for the next few minutes. We are going to be visiting a few glaciers and seeing firsthand the effects of climate change. I think you might be surprised by what we find. Here's a brochure I have created about the glaciers we will be visiting and discussing today. We will go into a bit more detail, but this is a good overview for some of what we will be seeing. Before we start our tour, I wanted to talk a bit about a cause of global warming. One of the causes are humans. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that has been breaking down our atmosphere and causing the global temperature to gradually rise. However, this has become more of a problem in the last couple of centuries. For example, in 2013, carbon dioxide accounted for 82% of overall greenhouse gas emissions. Humans are changing the carbon cycle with the amount of carbon dioxide that we are emitting. The three main contributors to the emission of carbon dioxide are electricity, transportation, and industrial processes. It is one thing to point out these facts and state that we are heavily contributing to global warming, but it is another to actually see the effects. Let's continue with our tour. The first glacier we will look at is the Mer de Glace Glacier in France. In 1988, it took 3 steps to actually step onto the glacier. Now it takes 370. The stairs keep growing and the glacier keeps shrinking. It has been rapidly retreating over the last 30 years. It loses 4 to 5 meters of ice per year. By 2040, it is supposed to retreat by 1.2 kilometers. The ice itself lies underneath a thin layer of dust and rubble. Soon it will be out of sight. The manager of the Mer de Glace ice cave points out that people have started going to see the glacier just to see the effects of climate change. He deems it sad but necessary. What must be done to stop this? The next glacier we will look at is Antarctica. Because the temperature of the atmosphere is rising, this also means that the temperature of the oceans are rising as well. This is causing Antarctica's ice shelves to collapse, which in turn is shrinking the continent. Antarctica is split into 2 parts. East Antarctica is a high, cold desert about the size of Australia. It is about 1.2 miles higher than the Colorado Plateau. West Antarctica is actually a grouping of islands much like Hawaii covered in ice. Some points are approximately 1 mile below the sea level. The process of the ice shelves collapsing is causing the glaciers to slide downhill, which leads to a decrease in the mass of ice covering the islands. NASA reports that if all of the ice covering East Antarctica were to melt, it would raise the global sea level by about 197 feet. These are only 2 examples of the many glaciers and land masses that are being affected by global warming and climate change. The question is, how can we get people to realize this and act on it? I think a key piece to a solution is getting information out that is understandable and easily accessible. According to a study done by Yale, a little less than half of the population believes that humans are a main cause of global warming. If experts can provide information in public forums that is easily understandable and accessible, then we might be able to raise awareness about our actions and steps we can be taking to slow this process. There are some organizations that have already taken some action. This link takes us to the Olympic National Park in Washington State. They have created an interactive map on their website that lets the viewer see different glaciers in the park. Some of these glaciers have images that have past and present comparisons where you can drag a bar down and see the glacier change before your eyes. This is an example of the Lillian Glacier. Here it is in 1905. It is much more different in 2010. This is a great way to view the effects of climate change without even having to leave your home. A portion of this video by Sky News also does an excellent job of explaining the climate change and glacier melting process.
2 degrees is the target for limiting the global temperature increase, but if greenhouse gas emissions were halted now, temperatures would still rise by up to 1 degree Celsius. 6,000 years ago, temperatures were at this level, and America's Midwest was a desert. The world's food production centers will become barren again. In this future, mountains lose their glaciers and rivers vanish, the Indian subcontinent fighting for survival. A single degree temperature increase could eliminate fresh water from a third of the planet within 85 years. Warming at the poles happens faster than the global average. 40% of Arctic sea ice has disappeared in the last 30 years. While ice reflects heat, oceans absorb it, so as ice melts, the process becomes self-reinforcing. More ocean surface means more heat absorbed, which raises temperatures, making the ice less likely to reform. Mountainous regions are at greater risk of landslides as the permafrost which held them together for thousands of years melts away. Low-lying countries like the Maldives are submerged as sea levels rise, and countries already hit by hurricanes face ever greater storms. At a 2-degree rise, people begin to die in what are now considered normal summers. In 2003, with temperatures 2.3 degrees above average, 52,000 people died across Europe. Plant growth slows down, then stops. They don't absorb carbon dioxide as efficiently, instead emitting it. The extra carbon sees global warming spiral out of control. 125,000 years ago, when temperatures were 2 degrees higher, sea levels were up by 6 meters. Today, that extra water makes up our polar ice, which is melting. By the year 2100, sea levels could rise by a meter, displacing 10% of the world's population.
In this way, we can show people what it looks like for our world to start disappearing. If the planet that we live on starts to disappear, it would result in a catastrophe. CNN recently reported that rising sea levels could potentially kill and displace millions of people. An artist created different images of well-known landmarks around the world and what they would look like if sea levels rose. At least 100 million would be driven into extreme poverty, and the water levels would submerge 500 million homes. It would also increase the risk of waterborne illnesses. Just the United States has 25 million people living in vulnerable areas. Is there some way we can spark a sense of urgency into the population? Time will only tell. However, we do not have a lot of it. Living by example is another way to catch people's attention. In the end, we cannot change the way people think or act unless we start with ourselves. It is up to us to take action and be good stewards of the earth that we have been given. Wouldn't it be nice if we could maintain and preserve a place for future generations to enjoy as well?